So now it's my pleasure to introduce our panelists for today. So Swathi, because you joined last, I'm going to introduce you first. Again, can I just ask all the other panelists put themselves on mute until it's their turn to speak? That's just going to help reduce the echo throughout. Great. Okay, so Swathi, you joined last. I'll introduce you first. So Swathi is the CEO of LiveMindz, SheJobs, and a startup enthusiast. Swathi is an expert in digital and engineering consultant. Driven by her vision of continually working for the growth of women and with a strong diversity and inclusion strategy, Swathi founded SheJobs to help organizations achieve the gender neutrality ratio. Swathi specializes in team management, business development, operations, and sales. Welcome, Swathi. Thank you for being here. Okay, great. Next, it's my pleasure to introduce Sonu Ratra. She's the president and co-founder of Akraya and Women Back to Work. So Sonu spearheaded and founded Women Back to Work, a workforce re-entry program for women. Sonu serves on the board of directors at the Institute for Economic Empowerment of Women to support their Peace Through Business program. She also serves on the foundation board at the Silicon Valley Leadership Group. A past winner of the Enterprising Woman of the Year Award, Sonu has received several accolades, including the Women of Influence Award and Northwood's Outstanding Business Leader Award. Sonu, thank you for being here. We're really looking forward to hearing from you. Our final panelist today is Preet Sohi, who is the founder and CEO of employHER. So Preet is an astute executive who desires to work with people and organizations to assist them in developing a culture that achieves new breakthrough results. She communicates purpose and strategic vision simply and tirelessly everywhere. Preet specializes in seeing opportunities and aligning partnership, leadership, and management teams on incremental improvements for long-term plans to achieve success. Preet, thank you for being here. It's great to have you.
Thank you, Sheila.
Great. So finally, I'm very happy to introduce our moderator today, Melissa St. Clair, who's the Vice President of TIAA's Inclusion Team. So at TIAA, Melissa has end-to-end responsibility for the strategic planning, delivery, execution, and measurement of the enterprise-wide D&I programming, BRG management, client engagement initiatives, and more. Prior to her role on the inclusion team, Melissa managed TIAA's contingent worker program. She also serves as the Chief of Staff to TIAA's Chief Inclusion and Diversity Officer. Melissa, thank you so much for being here. I know we're going to have a great conversation. Okay, at CPAL, thank you all to our attendees for being here. Melissa, thank you for moderating. I'm going to pass it off to you to start the conversation.
Wonderful. Thank you, Sheila. I am so excited to be joined by such an accomplished group of entrepreneurs today who are really shaking things up in the talent world by ensuring females are given the same high-level opportunities in tech, finance, and other innovative and exciting roles. My panelists and I have three objectives to discuss today. We're going to define the problem, we're going to create the solution, and we're going to see how we can measure success. And we're going to do this all from the varying perspectives of the entire talent ecosystem. So let's first start off with the problem that the US is facing right now, which is the mass exodus of women leaving the workforce. Nearly 5.4 million women have left the workforce over the past year. I remember when I saw in December that 140,000 women left the workforce, and oh my goodness, like that's massive. What's going on? And I am literally shocked and dismayed to see that number is now 5.4 million women have left their jobs. And it's primarily because of COVID, and people are having to make really tough decisions. You know, how do we solve for these challenges? What are we going to do? What is the world going to look like in the talent ecosystem workforce? President Biden has even deemed this a national emergency, rightfully so. So now I want to turn to our panelists to find out what the challenges they're facing from a workforce perspective with this situation, and additional issues we're going to see when women want to re-enter and are able to re-enter the workforce. So Sonu, I think we should start with you for this question, and then I would invite Preet and Swathi to answer it as well.
Melissa, you're absolutely right. Just a couple of days ago, I was reading that President Joe Biden declared it national emergency. And I think the first the first thing is to recognize that we have a problem. Women have been talking about this for the last all of 2020, but I think nobody paid attention. And I think people are saying, well, this is not, we have to all do something about it. And I think the problems are, very simple. I don't know if, 10 minutes ago when I was on the call, my dog barked, right? And I had to go take care of the dog. And so I just think that when you're at home, women are having to have just a huge load of responsibilities, and it's of disproportionate amount, and there is expensive childcare to look at, and traditionally women have been the one that bear the burden. So it's very normal that women tend to take the back seat, and they have done that in 2020, and we are seeing that impact today because women have left the workforce. And of course, it is retail and it's manufacturing and it's construction, but we're also seeing women leave technology, which anyways is an area, there's huge gaps that exist. So, first, I think the first step is to recognize we have a problem. And then the second step is for everybody to think, well, raise your hand and say, well, I could do something about this. And I think that's where change starts to happen and we start to think about solutions.
Yeah. Thank you, Melissa. I couldn't hear most part of it, but I understood that you're talking about the problem and Sonu has answered. I'll just take one point because I know all other points are already covered by Sonu and you. I think when we recognize women leaving their jobs in pandemic, I think it has started long back when a woman is a mother of a special needs child, especially. So I am a mother of a child with autism, and it is happening since way long for those kind of women, right? And with the single women and many more, like who has a sabbatical to take care of the elders or anybody, even with the pregnancy, and pandemic is like one new thing which is added to that to create the hole in the resumes of women, right? So I think there is a major problem, and I think we all gathered up here to understand like what to do about it and brainstorm our ideas. Yeah, I'm so excited to hear the others' perspective on this.
Preet, you may be on mute.
Well, sorry. Thank you. I would definitely agree with Sonu and Swathi, and I think that this issue for myself personally, I've been doing a lot of research before I started employHER, is what is, how do you define the problem? And I think that we all know this. This is very internal. Like Sonu says, raise your hand if you've identified this. What is it that we can do? And Swathi is also in agreement to that. I think it's also perception. I think personally, how do you view your workplace? And if it's the values that we personally hold, our personal values, I think it adds a lot to how our workplace looks. It adds to the way we identify how our team looks. And overall, setting a company expectation from that perspective, I think that the problem can be resolved. But defining the problem not just happens within walking into a team and saying, okay, so there is a higher male dominancy and a decrease and decline in female. For me personally, I think identifying a problem comes from a personal point of view as much as it comes from a corporate point of view. So the issue is not a recent issue that is being identified. It's definitely hyped up now more so than ever because of the decline of women in the workforce due to the pandemic. So I think that is definitely a core issue coming from all aspects, but definitely for me, it's a personal value issue as well.
Thank you, Preet. Thank you, Sonu. Thank you, Swathi. We're going to go ahead and move on to the next one. And this is going to be around creating the solution. And once we hear from our panelists, I would love to speak from an enterprise perspective and tell you what companies like TIAA and other Fortune 100 companies are doing to offset some of these challenges that we're facing because of COVID and women leaving the workforce. So let's talk, again, solutioning. How do we get women back to work? Especially when, the resumes may not have that continuity that enterprises like to see. There's always that red flag that goes up. Oh, why does this person have a gap? Why haven't they had that consistent work experience? So would love to hear from a staffing perspective, how do you sell, these, candidate stories to enterprises that may not be as receptive about people taking a sabbatical or a hiatus? And what other solutions are you looking to create, from innovative platforms to, attracting more talent to give to your clients? So Preet, let's go ahead and start with you for this one.
Thanks, Melissa. Yeah, creating. Can you guys mute? Okay, thank you. So I think that creating the solution is hand in hand with championing for your female talents. We particularly at employHER focus on women and gender diverse talent. So what we do in creating a solution, aside from enhancing education or finding other opportunities to add skills or reskills or upskills our talents knowledge, but we definitely champion for them. The clients that I closely work with, they come to us because of the fact that they are looking to hire more women and gender diverse people in the workplace, and how we tend to represent our talent pool to our clients or employers is by being that champion. We are bridging the gap between how they portray a resume to how they actually portray a human. So for example, I have placed talents without resumes. I don't even sometimes send resumes to my clients because I am championing for this person. I will dictate a story. I will write a synopsis of what my candidate is all about, rather than just sending technical highlights. Oh, you sent me this job description, and so my candidate falls right into this job description. What is your end goal? Really, is it just to get butts in seats or placements and get a payout and then you move on? Or are you really trying to understand what the pain point this candidate is facing and you are championing for this person? I think that my clients really, really appreciate that. They love reading stories. And when you do that for your candidate, your client really sees the value in it. So the solutions that we've come up with at employHER, we're still in a startup phase, we're still in development, but we've designed a platform that uses a video profile that focuses on showcasing personalities, soft skills, experience, and personal branding. And that is the story that a talent can tell for themselves to the employers, to their networks, to anybody who is coming to our website to hire talent or even to connect with people. So that is something that we are working towards. But I think what's the most important thing is be a champion for these women. And like Sonu mentioned earlier, and Swathi mentioned, juggling multiple jobs, which doesn't have to be a paid job, right? Being a mother, being a daughter, being a parent, and then having a child with any sort of disability adds only so much to the issues of having a woman having to find a job. So just be that advocate. And I always look at it in a way that when I was in their shoes, how would have I wanted it? And my entire mission and vision for employHER, it has been around how and what I needed when I was in the workforce. So we are creating a mission, creating her pathway to success and building a community for women to thrive here at employHER. So I think that just identify those stories. Share those stories with your employers. If you can avoid resumes, educate, reskill, and up-brand your talent. Because at the end of the day, as much as your employer or the company that you're working for is your end customer, without a talent, you would not make revenue, and they are also your end customer. Take care of them.
I think working on the reskilling program, I believe more into that. When you just look at this screen, like I think we can get those soft skills and presentation skills from employHER, and then work with Sonu on getting them back to work, and then I work with like enormous women. Like for instance, if we post one job, we get overwhelming response of at least like 1,000 resumes. Just all of them, all of those women who has got that hole in, like they have the gap in the resume and they want to get back to the workforce. Sometimes it is so much stress, and like 2 days back, I was like literally thinking like, did I take like the biggest responsibility in this world? Like, how am I going to show work for all these women when they ping me personally in LinkedIn, Facebook and all that? I think it cannot be done with like one innovation or one style or everything. I think the women in this room have to partner up with each other and then complement each one's solution. And that's when we can show, because end of the day, it's not about like promoting ourselves or our brand, but we really have to do something for those women. I think only few of us are blessed to come into this screen and talk, but there are so many women who are there back, who has more skills than us, or who are just left behind just because they don't have any opportunity. So that's my main concern. I just want to put that out to you all.
Yeah, I love what Swathi and Preeti said, and I love the comments here too. It's just amazing to read them while I'm listening to both of you. For me, I think it's all about action, and I think the problems begin with the resume, and the problem begins with the hiring manager's perception. So I think we need to change that, because that's the ultimate goal is to get these women hired. And so when I think there's a lot of staffing companies here, so when as a staffing company, when you present someone with a gap, I think maybe it's worthwhile writing a bit of a footnote on why did this person take a gap, and during the gap, what did they do, and how did they upscale, right? And even if they were volunteer, they're Lego robotics moms, they are project managers, they are multitasking. Have them add that on their resume, and then and then of course build. It takes a bit of time for women to someone who's been out. I mean, if I stayed at home for 3 weeks, when I had to go back, I would feel like, oh my gosh, I've lost touch with the real world. And these women have been out for a year to 2 to 5 to 19 years. So helping them with that confidence, and it doesn't take too long, really. These are very, very smart women. All of us are extremely smart, right? So it's just we've had the experience. And on the second hand is the hiring manager perception, and I think we need to bust those myths as well, as what is it to hire a returner, and what have they done? Look, Swathi said it, Preet said it. Look at the aptitude. Look at what they bring to the table holistically versus just that thickness. So the gap is really, we know it's in the resume. It's not in talent. And then for the hiring manager, perhaps what was I going to say? Orientation. So do an orientation for hiring managers, and encourage the teams to compare apples to apples and not oranges to apples. Because if you compare someone who has a gap of 2 years with someone who has been working till yesterday, you are obviously gonna you're going to reject that resume. So I think these are all actionable items. Returnships or return to work program is a great solution. You create 16 weeks or 26 weeks returnship program, where women are just provided that extra support, mentoring, technical buddy, coaching that helps them ease in and on ramp. And I think it's always about what are the actions we can take. Be her ally. You talked about being a champion. Let's be her ally. We just introduced at Women Back to Work a training, and it's called Be Her Ally training. And you know who that training is for? That training is for the spouses. It's for the partners, because that becoming her ally begins at home. If the woman has 100% responsibility, she's never going to be successful at work. So being her ally at work, being her ally at home, and just really thinking about what's the action we can take.
I love it. I love hearing all these really great solutions. I want to follow up on a couple of things that Preet and Sonu said. So Sonu, you said, it's changing the hiring manager's perceptions. And, I want to speak to two things. One from the contingent, labor side of the house. So we, several years ago, put in place to make sure that we were receiving a diverse slate of candidates from all suppliers. In fact, it went on their scorecard. We, they had to report in arrears. We didn't care if John, Jacobs was a white veteran, with a disability. What we wanted to know is that out of the 50 candidates that you sent us in January, that X were female, X were male, X were Black, Hispanic, LGBT, and that you would be judged on your scorecard on how how much of an effort that you made to give us a diverse slate. Now, from a full-time hiring perspective, we put in place some initiatives this year to make sure that any hiring or any full-time role that we had, there's going to be a diverse slate that was presented at one time to the hiring manager. Our talent acquisition, the recruiters, had to make sure that there's at least one female and one person of color on that slate before that person can send over any of the resumes to the hiring manager. And on top of that, we have hiring panels. So if you don't have a female or a person of color on a hiring panel, you're not going to get a female or a person of color hired for that job. The statistics show that. So we have made an effort to make sure that, not only does that candidate interview with the hiring manager, but they have to do the hiring panels. And that just makes it more equal and give people a fair shot, especially when they may have had to take some time off work to care for an elderly parent or for a child. You're going to have more empathetic panelists that understand that situation if there's diversity on that hiring panel. And then Preet, just to circle back on, something that you said, that women are constantly juggling multiple jobs. We're juggling children, we're juggling parents, we're juggling children with disabilities. I wanted to add something that, I think my company does a very good, and that is understanding the need to create work-life balance for parents facing unimaginable situations and challenges these days. Working Mother, it's a think tank for corporations trying to ensure equity, in the workforce, and that working mothers are getting taken care of. And TIAA has been awarded for the past 9 years. We are very focused on making sure that we attract strong female talent and that they have the work-life balance to handle their personal lives as well. And what we did last year is we've always had a backup childcare reimbursement of 20 days. And this is if, she cancels on you and she's sick, or your child's got the flu and can't go into daycare or school, we pay for someone to come to your house or reimburse you for the nanny. Well, once COVID hit and everyone was forced to go back home and children were not in school, parents just said, oh my goodness, what am I going to do about this? So we raised that from 20 days to 60 days. We increased the dollar amount of reimbursement to really help offset the costs that parents are facing for having to find additional childcare. And I know that has personally helped me and other working fathers and the organization. So when you have a company that says, I realize that there's a challenge here for my employees, I want to take care of them, small as just increasing a backup childcare allowance to help offset those costs is huge. Offering tutoring, when children are sitting there virtual learning every day, it's not as easy as being in school. You don't have the same access to resources. Sometimes you need a tutor coming in. We do special education programs. So for our associates that have children that have special needs, we offer free resources for that. And then many other benefits like flexible work. Now that we're all working from home, 9 to 5 isn't the norm. If you want to do 6 to 3, that's fine too. If you want to work late at night, it's just getting the job done. However, it is best, suited for your life while working at home. And we've also made a faux pas for parents to say, I'm so sorry that my daughter just came in and photo my Zoom, or I'm sorry that my dog is barking. Are all living and working in a weird environment. And we are going to have distractions. That is life. This is not a closed cubicle where we, are in our own box by ourselves. No, and companies need to make it okay for parents who are working from home that if, little Johnny needs to get on his Zoom class, for them to take a step out and say, okay, I'll be back 2 seconds, and not have to apologize for it and not have to be embarrassed. This is the way of life. And companies need to create that inclusivity to make people feel that it's okay that they can have that work-life balance. And I really believe that is enterprise's job. And, from HR, from the leadership down, to make sure that their employees have that inclusivity and don't have to hide the fact that they have children at home and they're balancing multiple priorities. So we are actually doing very well on time. There's nothing else from our panelists around creating the solution. I can talk about measuring success. Before I do measuring success, any other follow-up questions from the solution creating perspective?
How do I get a job in your company?
I do think
That
one
was
more
wonderful
thing.
environment. We all dream for that.
I do think that one thing that I wanted to say, and this goes probably for all of the questions that we will cover, is empathy, right? So creating solution from an empathetic. Can Sonu mute your mic, please? I think I'm hearing an echo.
Oh, let me go on mute.
Okay. So I think that we've spoken about all of this, but I think that the empathetic perspectives, we tend to usually not look at it that way. And referring back to my comment about championing for women, I think that clients need to really, and I want to emphasize this as much as possible, and I think in the next round of questions, I will bring a more perspective insight on this, is need to start educating your employers as well. They see so many candidates come in, and that is no excuse, but sometimes it is overwhelming, and it is our responsibility, if we are working one-on-one with this employer, build that relationship, let them know what you're really doing. So bringing empathy, and I think that that is really important in your teams, but also in within your employers. And I think that we don't speak about it as much, but empathy is definitely where this all lies, and women are so empathetic in most cases that I think that that is something that we need to address as well.
You're absolutely right. And, there is a big opportunity for HR and talent acquisition and, staffing teams to talk to their hiring managers about, how to approach difficult situations, how to be empathetic to people facing, unique challenges during this time. And if, you're not going to have an inclusive environment where people are afraid to be themselves. And so, that just goes back to the whole diversity and inclusion, difference that Don was talking about earlier. You can get diversity in the door all day, every day. But if you're not inclusive and create a feeling of belonging, they're going to leave and you're back to square one. So.
And one of the other things that I wanted to piggyback on Swathi is, Swathi says she gets 1,000 responses. That's so amazing that you get that. It is super cool. What we have been doing is, when a candidate is not a right fit for one particular role, I literally have been talking to employers to making a different role if they really like the candidate. So going back on your question is, how can we actually increase that? We know that they're hiring. How can we transition and create a solution within their team that they probably don't even know it exists? So I submitted somebody at Accenture, and they are one of our recent clients, and we submitted somebody at Accenture, and she didn't fit one of the requirements. We worked with the recruiter and found a different transition, and now she's interviewing for another role. I've done that a lot with some of my startups. I think one of the solutions is really, really understanding how you can really bridge that gap. And if we bring our passions together, and I know you said one person can't change it, but it all starts with one person, Swathi. So everybody that's here today in the panel, they are all that one person, and it only takes that one person.
Right on, Preet. And we are going to go to our last topic before we move to Q&A. And this is all about measuring success. So what does this look like for the talent out there looking for jobs? What does this look like from the enterprise perspective? Swathi, why don't we start with you on this one?
Is it for me? Because I couldn't hear you actually.
Oh, I'm sorry. If I'm on mute, is this better, Swathi?
Ways to measure success. Okay.
Okay, yeah, measuring success.
Yeah, I got that. See, basically, I want to measure in some numbers because I believe in numbers, but I think I have like few pointers which I think has to be measured for, right? Like first instance, let's not look only at the diversity or hiring diversity by gender as such, but I think we also should concentrate on the inclusion metrics, right? I think there has to be some organizations outside of our skill set or anything should, do kind of internal anonymous auditing on finding about the inclusive percentages, like, or like how people are feeling about the exact inclusion, what the organizations are quoting. And I think there has to be some percentage created at the internship levels, even for the career freshers to the returnship programs. I think everything has to be measured deliberately, not just for sake of giving a job. No, that's not what women wanted, right? Like they wanted to be like part of the team and they have to grow. So we need to like clearly measure like percentage of those diversified workforce whom we have covered as part of the diversity program. How many of them have gone to the middle management level? How many of them have gone to the leadership level? I think that is very important. It's not about just go to a college and hiring just bunch of freshers, like, in hundreds of numbers and saying that, we are diversified. No, that's not what we wanted. So I just want to say one last point. I always urge organization, whenever I get an opportunity, I want to put this point. Please create special quotas for women in all layers, including the transgenders and LGBTQ. So just create 5% quota for the mothers with the special needs children, create 5% quota for like transgenders, create 5% quota for women who have gap in the careers. So, and create 5% quota for the domestic abusement women who are looking to get back to workforce and stand on their own feet. So I think, just creating those percentage numbers as such by every organization, I think can take us to some extent. In that case, like everybody will start working on targets. There is a number associated to your target, and right from lower level to leader CEO level, like everybody has to understand what exactly a diversity and inclusion means. And like Dawn McCarthy, she was mentioning in her last speech. So it is pretty important for a from the recruiter level, it has to be taught, like, because a recruiter is usually paid an incentive when the high skilled worker is being taken, right? That's not how it has to be seen. I think there has to be a referral programs for the diversity and inclusion. And I think this, this AMIL system where, it just takes the resumes based on the skill level and all that has to be gone. And I think they shouldn't be there. I don't support.
Swathi, I want to follow up on something you said about inclusion metrics, and just give a couple examples out to our enterprise clients out there. So one way to measure your inclusion throughout your organization, TIAA does an engagement survey, and we do it quarterly. And in addition to that engagement survey, we have an inclusion index where there's 7 questions that really judge how people are feeling about the organization. Are they feeling included? Do they feel that, senior leadership is driving inclusion down? Is there a manager? And each manager is delivered, managers of 5 or more people, kind of anonymous feedback and their scores on their inclusion engagement index. And from that, we have to put actionable, items and plans into place to increase any area where we are not hitting that benchmark. So, Swathi, you're absolutely right. You can get people in the door, but if they're not feeling included and they don't feel like they have a voice at the table and can be their true selves, companies really need to pay attention. And, incorporating metrics and measurements into their overall I&D strategy is so important. Another good example is the broken rung analysis, where you can see based on gender and minority breakdowns, how long it takes from one person to get that first promotion, how many months, how many years, and you can compare it to other genders and other ethnicities. And then we also take a step further to see how long it takes that person to get to their first people manager position. Because if women and people of color are not getting into people manager roles, they will never get to the C-suite. They will never get to the executive level. And so it's very important that enterprises and companies are taking a look and seeing what their workforce composition is, but also at what levels and what are the programs and initiatives in place to help them get to those levels. So let me pause right there and hand it back over to I see Sheila has joined us. Sheila, do we have 2 more minutes for?
Minutes, and then let's start Q&A. So definitely wrap up this part of the conversation, and then we'll transition.
Okay, Sonu, Preet, any closing comments about the measuring success topic?
I added some points here as well, but I think the simple measure of success, as you know, as a whole, is going to be: are we going to be able to bring these numbers down? And that, to me, is going to be the metrics we should be looking out for as 2021 unfolds. You said over 5 million. Are those numbers going to start to reduce? It's almost like the vaccine we're looking for, right? Today, how do we define that? It's the numbers. It's the numbers. It's the numbers. So, but Melissa, your points were spot on, and I think we need to think about all of that, both as at enterprise level as well as staffing company levels.
I think enterprise and companies, do have goals and quotas like annual. They have those set. They have diversity spend, how much they've allocated to spend on diversity. The question goes back to, how are they going to measure it, and how are they going to maintain it, and having allies within those. And going back to Don's remarks earlier is, inviting me to the party and not asking me to dance changes the DEI, terminology 100%. So I think that the ATS system, I agree with you, Swathi. I think that definitely needs to change. But I do think that a lot of companies have initiatives. They just don't know where to start. They have no idea where to go and find. We've been hearing we need to increase diversity. We need to increase minority hires. We need to bring in more people of color, and not just gender-wise, but disability. We've been hearing it over and over again. And that is one of the reasons why Sonu and Swathi and myself, are building companies like ours. And then there are many other women out there that are building companies like ours as well, to identify that particular problem, right? So I think that measuring success with it's a bigger picture than just that, but to be able to educate, and it's an internal thing again. But it's so hard. Our hands are tied how we educate the enterprise level, but we can use our voices and our platforms with the existing people that we have, that we work with. So all of our clients that we have, we can do that. And I encourage the people that are attending this event, enterprise, staffing companies, really have those conversations with your customers. If you really want to measure them, don't just be a number on a scorecard. Don't just be a number that I need to hit this revenue. Don't pressure your salespeople and recruiters to just hit numbers and make placements. Teach them how to have education.
Thank you, Preet. Sheila, I know we only have a few minutes left for questions. Do you want to go ahead and take us to Q&A?
Yes. Okay. To all of our panelists, thank you so much. This was just an amazing conversation. Really inspiring to hear as a young woman in the workforce. So thank you. We are going to end at 10:30 sharp. So that leaves us 1 minute per question. And I do have 3 questions here. So we're right on track. The first, Melissa, it's very short and it's for you, but what are the engagement rates that you get on that survey you were talking about earlier? So how does your company respond?
Well, we do hit the benchmark. Usually we set our benchmark between 70 to 80, depending on the category. But I would say 95% of our areas are hitting those benchmarks. And we've actually seen an increase on how people, especially women of color, have felt from a belonging and an inclusion perspective since the launch of our Be the Change program, which was to fight against the social and racial injustice that we really saw come to light over last summer. So the great thing about having measurements like this is you can see how your programs are really impacting the workforce and the sentiment.
Yeah, great. Okay, great. So my next question, it's for all of the panelists, but maybe I'll pitch it and whoever wants to answer. Let's keep it to one answer so we keep to time. But someone asked, is there a good solution for a woman who's in her second stage of life? So say she's in her 40s and she's pit against younger women who are up and coming in their career. What are some options for women like that? So they've had their children, they're trying to re-enter the workforce. Maybe Sonu, can you speak to this? Because I know Women Back to Work really specializes in this. So.
Yes, absolutely. And I'll keep it short. Returnships or return to work programs are a great way to really, try going back to work. And the country has over 100 return to work programs, and across the country, given that we are virtual, a lot of companies are very open to where you may be based. So it really opens doors. And then when you're a part of the return to work programs, I would, make sure you're prepared completely to, do those interviews, because at the end of the day, hiring managers need to hire people that are going to be able to deliver on the projects, right? And you want to be able to do that. So return to work clearly is a very good way to. Also, don't shy away from applying to contract jobs. I saw over here that a lot of staffing companies are actually considering them. So contract contingent jobs are a great way to, and then also apply to full-time jobs. No, don't hold yourself back.
Great. Okay, panelists, attendees, that's all we have time for today. I'm sorry if we didn't get to your questions. Melissa, Preet, Swathi, and Sonu, thank you so much. Again, just a great panel, really inspiring as a young woman in the workforce. This session will be recorded. We will send it out to all of attendees. So thank you so much. Check out our agenda tab, and we'll see you soon. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sheila.
Bye.